In 1980, American jazz funk soul ensemble Ambiance released their second album, Drift Up to Space, and from it, the title track. Okay, I love the change. We went from that spacey, really open cadence, rhythmless beginning with those swirling synth noises, and then suddenly we go into this really rapid, kind of like post-bop, well, like electrified post-bop section with a spinning bass line. Okay, I love those vocal accents, and I love that the smooth fluidity, purity of tone of that saxophone, played by Daoud, Abubakar, Balewa. Yeah, he's like the mastermind behind this band. Yeah, and the female, those vocals too, really tight. Okay, and I really like this change too. Yeah, now our third section in only a minute, and so different from the last one, so rhythmically. This band, like for like a band that's like steeped kind of in that's very jazzy in its orientation. They've got a lot of kind of like abrupt and tight movements that somewhat to like progressive rock. Try and count that. 1, 2, 10. It definitely sounds like something that you could hear like on I don't know, like an early Curved Air album. Okay, and that bass is being played by Paul Olguin. Okay, that bassist, I guess I looked him up the last time I did a video. Yeah, I did this band, like I did some tracks from their first album a few months ago, and I guess that's what brought the last time I was at this Discogs page where it says that the bassist Paul Olguin, well, he recently surfaced in the Bay Paul Band, and like 2 years after this, he appeared on a he supposedly played on a single called "I Want to Be a Prostitute" by one Elisa Alvarez. Huh. Okay, this is quite a dizzying display between the bass and now the electric piano with its kind of diamond-y tone, and then the drumming quite brisk and cymbal-laden, giving us quite a misty backdrop and pace to it all. Scratch that. Not so much cymbal-laden as I'm hearing brushes. Yeah, it's the brushes that I'm thinking of, that kind of misty feel. Okay, and the Bob Selvin is responsible for all the keyboards. He plays acoustic piano. Right here, right now, he's playing Fender Rhodes, of course. He also is credited with ARP String Ensemble and Oberheim OBX synthesizer. Yeah, and what else did he do? Oh, not much out of this band. Oh yeah, that Balanced Action album. That was a great cover. I need to get my hands on that. Yeah, the first time I ever saw that cover was the last time I did a video on this band. Okay, and now we're on to our third soloist in the track, and of course it's the guitar work of Larry Knight. Yeah, quite a lightning-fingered guy here. And he had been in Spirit at some point. He was in, I guess he was in the late 70s version of Spirit. Yeah. Oh, he played on that 1972 album by Peter Kokkonen, the brother of the Jefferson Airplane guy, and he played on Randy California's Captain Copter. Yeah, it's interesting that those two albums he played on there as Larry Fuzzy Knight. And he played on one as Larry Weisberg, and so he's going under a few different names. It's interesting that those two albums from the same year have a link, because I often think of them in the same breath as both kind of like smoldering guitar type albums. And then he was in the late 70s lineup of Spirit. I love the speed and just the purity of yeah. Once again, we're back to Balewa, and who plays? Let's see, alto saxophone, soprano saxophone, all the saxes, tenor. Let's see, chimes, Agogô, bells, executive producer. Yeah, gives us everything on this. Admire just how every note is so clear. There's like not a single bump. Like you can just like make out every note he's hitting and just catch them all. And it's got a certain. It's slightly melodic, and yet it's also very kind of free flowing at the same time. Yeah, I just appreciate how this track is so composed and yet free flowing with distinct passages, instruments that you can take apart by ear, and just tonal clarity and care into the arrangement and just. recapitulation of what we heard early on the track, and I love those female vocals, kind of European or like Brazilian. Thinking maybe like Eastern European or Brazilian type of feel in them. That really not quite scat, but really staccato and kind of high pitched and exuberant. Yeah. And I guess those are the two women we see on the cover. I guess it's 4/4, but it's kind of it also makes you want to go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 or something. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6. Yeah, it's one of those four fours with like threes, sped up into it. Yeah, yeah. That was "Drift Up to Space" by Ambiance from their album of the same name. Let's hear one more track from the album, "Freedom." Okay, once again, very staccato, very abrupt, very choppy. That's what I love about this band. They bring all the great like European characteristics, and yet American at the same time. Actually, I'm hearing Brazilian, European, and American elements wed in a way that I don't think I've really heard elsewhere. It's undoubtedly got that kind of stateside jazz rock soul vibe with a slight art rock feel, a slight kind of tropical looseness to it. I appreciate those drums. I love that almost kind of like echoey rolls that we were just hearing, booming. Yeah, once again, not something that you hear much in like jazz. Some of those vocals and with those really choppy bars that we were just hearing could almost have been done by a Zoil band. Yeah, from France or the Lower Countries. God, they're so sparkly, that piano sound. I appreciate so much about this band even more as I think about it now is that this band has an understanding of the resonance of different instruments, and they know what kind of electric instruments work within with these jazz arrangements, and which would sound they don't have any of the instruments or any of the types of electrification that would sound cluttered among these like chromatic passages and yet they're not really jazz rock at all. I'm hearing and yet they've utilized just the right kinds of electronic and the metric elements from like progressive rock. It's really no other band really quite landed on this formula. No, I'm like going through my head like all the like the spiritual jazz ensembles of the period, the jazz rock bands, the jazz funk acts of the period. I'm not hearing it. This is in a class by its own. Yeah, the piano's like verging on kind of like free form, and the drums, it's got that misty feel to it, but not cymbal mist, because that I guess would sound kind of cluttery. I'm hearing kind of this shaking sound, which invokes somewhat of a Brazilian vibe, even if not overtly so. Then we get that hollow body electric guitar coming in. Yeah, kind of like noodling, like they would have done like in the early '60s on Blue Note, like some of the guitarists from that label. The bass going really rapidly throughout it. Beautiful, and you that tone once again. This, given the brisk pace that runs throughout this, this is definitely one of those albums that could be a gateway for rock listeners. I our leader guy here, he did I guess 4 albums with this band between 1979 and 1982, and then revitalized the nameplate for 2 further albums later in the decade, and according to Discogs, didn't do a lot else. Very talented guy, very talented band leader, arranger, saxist. Now that's a drum sound I haven't heard on many records kind of in the jazzy vein at all. I'm trying to think of who it reminds me of. I guess it kind of reminds me of some of the drumming on Zhao's Kawana album. Huh. Like, it's got kind of like a booming kind of echo quality, these rolls. It sounds like big drums. Notice how the guitar and the vocals are doubling up here, kind of like hitting the same notes, and just that following in lockstep on that really frenetic pace. I guess I could easily name drop anyway, like the Flora Purim or like Ursula Dudziak vein of really hyperactive, scat influenced experimental singing, and also some of the Zoil acts that had female vocals on them. Yeah, amid those really just jerky, asymmetric meters and such, and rhythmic characteristics. Yeah, that was, Ambience with Freedom, and before that Drift Up to Space, from the album Drift Up to Space, their 1980 release, their second of 4 albums as Ambience, and then later on they came back as Ambience 2 Fusion, yeah. And I did another video on them a few months ago, yeah, from their album Eben. Yeah, great band. Just only discovered them a few years ago and was just amazed by the quality of their output. Yeah, all their releases on Damon Records with a distinct kind of low budget cover art, all like like these kind of like monochrome photos of like 1 or 2 of the members. Yeah, with the logo like diagonally in the corners and such, yeah. For more rubies and sapphires from the catalog of Ambience, see the directory of albums by American jazz funk artists. For Red Hot Tracks and Purples by the first few albums by Ambience, as well as many other acts, over 525 albums currently on what has become one of the most popular directories that I've put together for within the RYM database, yeah. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, share the video, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the 2 tracks we just heard, the interplay, just the dizzying counterpoint arrangements, the harmonics, yeah. Yeah, who had the best solo? Was it the guitar? Was it the keyboard? Was it the sax? Was it those rapid-fire, circular spinning bass lines? Was it the vocals and lilting octave reach and all that? And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled Tremax, signing off.